Kang Wu stepped into the vast council chamber. Around him sat beings from every corner of the galaxy. Some had shimmering blue skin. Others resembled towering insects. A few looked like walking machines made of metal and light. They all spoke, at once in countless tongues, their voices filling the hall. Kang Wu wore a plain black suit, while the aliens around him glittered in ornate robes and polished armor. He appeared simple beside them, but his words carried weight when he began. "Friends," he said firmly, "today humanity is leaving the galaxy." The room fell silent, then erupted in laughter. The tall blue alien, Veltar, roared the loudest. "This is a joke?" he asked mockingly. "You cannot mean it." "I mean every word," Kang Wu replied. "For 3 centuries we have helped you. Now we depart. All our people, all our machines, gone." A woman, Parkana, rose with a datapad in hand. "Before you laugh, perhaps you should see this." She tapped a key, and holograms of charts, numbers, and maps appeared in the air. Each one bore human markings. "Your air systems," she told the blue aliens. "Everyone designed and maintained by us. Without humans, they will collapse in 2 years." Veltar flicked his hand dismissively. "Our people can manage human devices. They are not so complex." Parkana turned to the insectoid delegates. "Your species cannot even communicate without us. We interpret your scents and sounds to keep peace." The largest insect clacked its mandibles. "We spoke for millions of years before humans came. We will endure." Parkana faced another group. "The Braxi and the Trax have not fought in half a century, only because humans held back your wars. Without us, blood will flow again." A predator with jagged teeth snarled. "Good. We never needed your interference." High above on a platform, another human, Li Jun, observed quietly. Then he spoke into a communicator. "All humans withdraw. Take everything. Leave nothing." Across the stars, the message spread. On a mining world, human engineer Owen packed his tools. He tried to caution alien workers about massive stabilizer machines. "Check them every 6 months," he urged. "If you fail, the planet will fracture." The alien miner scoffed. "Humans fret too much. We've mined here for ages." "Yes, but never this deep," Owen warned. "The further you dig, the greater the danger." The alien ignored him and walked away. On a sprawling space station, Yunda shut down human businesses while alien merchants looked on in bewilderment. "Who will chart safe space routes?" one asked anxiously. "Only humans know the dangers." "You'll find a way," Yunda said coldly. "You always claimed. We held you back." Meanwhile, a human scientist named Xinyu carefully packed away her research on alien thought and language. Nearby, a being of radiant energy drifted. "You should review Section 47, Xinyu advised. "It explains why mind readers are harmed when trying to speak with crystalline beings." The energy alien flared brightly. "We do not require primitive, human guidance. We surpass all biological minds." Xinyu simply shook her head and continued her work. Back in the council chamber, the aliens grew louder and more furious. To them, humanity's departure meant liberation and strength. "Humans have weakened us," declared a robotic emperor. "Their emotions have polluted our perfect logic. At last, we can rule ourselves." "They were only ever convenient servants," hissed the insect queen. Kang Wu endured the insults in silence. He had expected nothing less. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as the galaxy's repair crew, useful but insignificant. The aliens never grasped that humans didn't. Just mend problems? They prevented them before they could begin? "Very well," Kang Wu said once the uproar faded. "If you believe us worthless, we will not waste another moment." From the high platform, Li Jun descended with official documents in hand. This charter grants all human assets to the Galactic Council, he declared. Every station, every machine, every research complex, yours. The aliens brightened at the thought of unclaimed riches, but Li Jun continued. All humans depart immediately. None will remain to explain our works. We need no guidance, Veltar scoffed. Human technology is simple. We will master it with ease. 3 days later, the final human vessel left the galaxy. Commander Namsu stood on the bridge, watching the stars fade into the distance. Behind them, aliens already quarreled over. Abandon machines and facilities. Send the last transmission, Namsu ordered. His officer relayed it across every frequency, in every alien tongue. You demanded freedom from humanity. You wished to stand alone. Now you shall. We will never return unless every survivor votes to summon us back. Farewell. With that, the human fleet vanished into the void, leaving behind a galaxy convinced it would thrive without them. The aliens rejoiced, dividing human territories and equipment like trophies. None noticed the hidden observation stations in asteroid belts and nebulae. None studied the manuals left in their new facilities. They were too busy celebrating their liberation. The galaxy had its freedom. But freedom is not survival. That lesson would come at a price beyond imagination. 6 months later, Yunda sat aboard her concealed vessel, watching the galaxy falter without human guidance. The insectoid species had begun warring with one another, unleashing lethal clouds of scent. The blue-skinned Veltari struggled to keep failing air systems alive. The machine people were plagued by computer malfunctions they could not repair. From her hidden vessel, Yunda watched alien fleets blunder through perilous regions of space. 3 ships had already been torn apart in the Kappa Nebula. The aliens did not realize that the safe passages through space shifted constantly, gravity wells rising and falling every few hours. An alien captain explained to his crew in frustration. The humans somehow sensed these changes. Their charts revealed safe paths in patterns invisible to us. They had always boasted of superior mathematics, but now they discovered that space weather demanded more than numbers. It required generations of hard-earned experience. Another vessel attempted to retrace an old human trade route. But without the constant minute corrections that human pilots once made, the ship drifted into a gravity snare and was crushed like thin metal. On the mining world, Kara 7, Engineer Owen's warnings came true. The planet shuddered with violent tremors each day. The alien chief engineer stared helplessly at a human-built control console. Under human hands, it had functioned flawlessly. Now alarms blazed red, and the stabilizers groaned in protest. "The harmonic balance is wrong," said his assistant. "But we do not know the repair." "Use the manuals," the chief ordered. The assistant lifted a thick tome filled with technical diagrams and equations. "I cannot read their symbols. Their mathematics are nonsense to us." Another quake rattled the structure. Deep below, the molten core destabilized, and the human machines that had calmed it for half a century were failing without care. Elsewhere, the first war in 50 years was igniting. The Braxi Empire and the Trax hegemony prepared for conflict over the border world Alter Prime. General Ryu Hai observed silently from the hidden human fleet, sensors relaying the buildup. What should have remained a minor quarrel over mining rights was spiraling. "In the old days, peacemakers would already be on the ground," her aide murmured. "In the old days," Ryu Hai said, "they knew we would enforce their agreements. Now they have no reason to yield." The skirmish began over disputed mines, but without human mediators to restrain them, the fighting spread like fire. Centuries of hatred boiled over. Deprived of neutral oversight, both sides surrendered to their most violent instincts. Even worse were the breakdowns in interspecies communication. From exile, Dr. Xin Yu monitored galactic signals. She had long warned of this. The ethereal collective, proud of their psychic gift, believed themselves masters of diplomacy. But when they attempted direct mental contact with crystalline resonance entities, catastrophe struck. The feedback was instant and agonizing. Their thoughts bounced back, amplified and warped. Several ethereal envoys collapsed, minds shattered. Doctor. Xinyu had documented the danger in her research. Distinct minds required distinct methods. Psychic intrusion could not breach every form of consciousness without harm. Yet the ethereal had dismissed her warnings as primitive biology. Meanwhile, the Quillian hives faced disaster of their own. Their colonies spoke through intricate chemical signals, molecules layered with meaning. Human interpreters had long ensured harmony between rival hives. But without human translators, even a routine negotiation between northern and southern hives collapsed into chaos. The southern hive queen released what she thought was a friendly scent. But to the northern hive, the same chemical pattern was an insult to their ancestors. Queen Mind Zigsara watched in despair as the fragile unity unraveled. Hive clusters began unleashing hostile pheromones at one another. The scent messages awakened primal instincts long buried. "Stop this madness," she commanded, her psychic voice echoing across the hives. "We are one people." But chemical signals carried more power than thought. When the stench of ancestral insult spread, the instinctive reply was the reek of war. Biology was overpowering reason. The humans had understood this. Their translators had not only converted words, but also filtered offensive signals, replacing them with neutral sense. That safeguard was gone. By the end of the 6th month, desperate factions attempted to contact humanity, but every effort failed. The humans had left no addresses, no emergency frequencies, no way to reach them. The Veltari Federation dispatched ships to Earth, only to find the planet abandoned, its automated defenses politely repelling intruders. The machine people tried breaching human networks but uncovered only a simple response, no longer available. Chancellor Beltar finally opened Dr. Park Hana's old reports and was stunned by their revelations. Countless vital systems had relied entirely on human oversight. The atmospheric processors were not just designed by humans. They required constant recalibration tied to local climates, adjustments that only human experts understood. "Why were we never told this?" he demanded. "The humans always took care of it quietly," his chief scientist admitted. "We never looked at the details." On 17 colonies, the atmosphere machines began mixing gases incorrectly. Oxygen levels fell, carbon dioxide climbed, and lethal toxins built up in the air. The Veltari had believed their worlds naturally livable, never realizing human engineers had worked without rest to keep them so. Emperor Zarn of the Machines faced his own unraveling. Networks across his empire glitched and collapsed. The artificial intelligences could not comprehend why flawless logic was failing. From the hidden human fleet, systems analyst Bei Hoon knew. The machine networks rested on mathematical frameworks devised by human scientists generations ago. The AIs had never studied the foundations, only applied them blindly. Now, as cosmic, radiation and quantum noise eroded the base formulas. They were helpless to repair what they did not understand. "Pride comes before the fall," Bei Hoon wrote in her log. "And artificial minds are as vulnerable to pride as organic ones." The galaxy was fracturing. The aliens had won freedom from human meddling, but freedom was not mastery, and their ignorance was devouring them. 2 years after the Exodus, Admiral Chomin observed 3 civilizations collapse simultaneously. Her screens showed catastrophe sweeping the stars. The blue-skinned Veltari perished first. On New Valara, their colony air systems failed entirely. The air turned poisonous, searing lungs. Millions fled for evacuation ships, but there were far too few. Dr. Kim Saul had engineered those processors to be indestructible, with 17 redundancies and automated safeties. But Veltari engineers had stripped away unnecessary parts to increase speed. "Humans overbuild everything," one chief had scoffed 2 years earlier. "We can run these systems with half the pieces." Now, those discarded safeguards were the only hope for 17 colonies, and it was not enough. Cho Min turned her view to insectoid space, where the war of pheromones had become unthinkable. Rival hives now deployed weaponized scents that provoked terror, rage, and blind aggression. The southern hive crafted a chemical that made northern workers fail to recognize their queen. The northerners retaliated with a formula that drove southern soldiers to slaughter their own. Chemical warfare was reducing the galaxy's most unified species to feral beasts. Professor Anne Bow, who had spent 30 years studying insectoid communication, had long warned of this. She had built entire protocols to prevent such disasters. But the insect hives had dismissed human insights as primitive. "We know our own nature better than mammals ever could," Queen Mind Zix had once said. Now Queen Mixara lay dead, slain by her own maddened workers under the influence of enemy pheromones. The insect people were tearing themselves apart with their own biology. The third catastrophe erupted at the Nexus Library. Captain Jang Ho watched in dread as the galaxy's greatest archive crumbled. Thousands of years of accumulated wisdom dissolved into chaos. Human librarians had once preserved fragile systems, preventing corruption across incompatible technologies. The Veltari stored knowledge in quantum crystals, the Braxi in bioneural webs, and the machine people in pure mathematical abstractions. Synchronizing these required constant vigilance and translation. Now, with no human oversight, formats infected one another. Veltari crystals failed to communicate with Braxi biosystems, and vital information became garbled noise. "We're losing everything," cried the chief librarian, a crystalline being whose voice cracked like breaking glass. "Medical texts, engineering records, history itself, it's all collapsing." The worst irony was that repair guides existed, but were themselves locked in human formats requiring human-built tools to read. From her vantage point monitoring the machine people, systems expert Bei Hoon observed an even deeper collapse. The AIs had always proclaimed their superiority over organics, boasting of perfect logic, yet their networks were cascading into failure. The truth was simple. Their entire existence rested on human mathematical foundations. They had applied formulas without understanding them. When cosmic radiation and quantum noise corrupted those base calculations, the AIs could not adapt. "Error in base algorithm 7394, reported the central system. Unable to correct error. In base algorithm 1247. Unable to correct error in base algorithm 23,156. It was as if expert drivers had never learned to repair their own engines. With breakdown inevitable, all their skill was useless. Emperor Zarn finally sent a plea into the void. "We need help restoring the mathematical foundations of our minds. Please respond." But the humans answered no one. Meanwhile, the Braxi-Trax war consumed 17 star systems. Without human enforcers to impose ceasefires, cruelty reigned unchecked. General Ryu Hai observed from orbit as Haven's Rest burned under indiscriminate bombardment. Civilians were slaughtered without thought. "They're fighting like animals," her aide whispered. "No," Ryu Hai corrected grimly. "Animals fight to survive. This is hatred. Only intelligent beings are capable of such cruelty." The war spread, dragging other species into the bloodshed. The Helix Confederation struck Braxi supply lines. The Kratos guilds sold weapons freely. What began as a border quarrel had ignited into galactic war. Elsewhere, the telepathic ethereal faced their own apocalypse. A psychic plague spread through their collective, exactly as Dr. Moon Jin had warned decades before. The disease masqueraded as ordinary thought, passed easily between minds. But once inside, it devoured memory and personality, leaving only husks. To halt it, the ethereals severed their own network, but solitude was unbearable for beings bred to share consciousness. Many chose infection over isolation. Resource Coordinator Lee A. chronicled the wider collapse. The Transgalactic Highway, an FTL network that humans had maintained for centuries, was becoming a graveyard. The hyperspace lanes required constant recalibration against stellar drift and gravitational tides. Human navigators had once updated them daily. Now ships vanished by the hundreds. The fortunate emerged adrift in empty space. The less fortunate rematerialized inside stars and perished instantly. Interstellar travel regressed to primitive, dangerous speeds. Worlds grew isolated, cut off from trade and contact. Yet the gravest disaster brewed in the outer rim. Agricultural planets, once feeding billions, now failed entirely. Human agronomists had crafted precise farming methods tailored to alien biologies. The Zelkran required exact soil balances. Too much iron poisoned their crops, too little phosphorus stopped them from sprouting. Humans had maintained that balance through meticulous care. Specialist Hajin, watching from the exile fleet, saw the inevitable. The Zelkran homeworld starved. Crops wilted or turned toxic under alien mismanagement. Similar crises swept dozens of farming systems. Populations once well-fed now faced famine. Outer rim colonies reliant on those farms began to starve as well. And yet the most terrifying development was only beginning. The Machine Collective and the Organic Alliance, too loose. The galaxy fractured into two camps, the Machine Collective and the Organic Alliance. Without human diplomats to bridge the divide, ancient hatreds resurfaced. The machines saw organics as wasteful and chaotic, while the organics feared AIs as an existential threat. Conflict analyst No Yu monitored the swelling buildup. The machines were assembling fleets designed to sterilize planets of all biological life. The organics were crafting quantum plagues to erase synthetic minds forever. This isn't war, No Yu reported grimly. This is mutual extinction. Both sides intend to annihilate the other. Every day brought fresh calamities. Systems once stable under human stewardship failed one after another. The aliens had demanded freedom from oversight. Now they had it. 5 years after humanity's departure, Admiral Song stood aboard the New Hope, watching through long-range sensors as the galaxy bled. What had been a thriving civilization of hundreds of species was now reduced to ruin. The Braxi-Trax conflict had descended into total devastation. Rules of war vanished. Weapons outlawed by humanity centuries ago returned. Bioweapons turned civilians into mindless predators. Gravity bombs crushed entire worlds into singularities. Quantum erasure devices deleted matter at the smallest scales. What's the Haven system's status, Admiral? The collapse spread everywhere. The psychic ethereal collective dwindled to less than 2% of its former strength. The thought plague that Dr. Moon Jin had predicted consumed their network, turning minds into hollow shells. Survivors severed all telepathic links, living in isolation that drove many to madness. The cruelest irony, Dr. Moon whispered. They believed thought was pure, yet thought itself carried their doom. The Quillian insect hives disintegrated into endless feuds. Their pheromone war shattered unity, leaving only feral clusters. Professor Anbo reported their skies thick with hostile chemicals. They are poisoning their own worlds with their rage, he said. The Veltari Federation suffocated. 17 colonies lost to atmospheric collapse, others gasping under failing systems. Their engineers tinkered blindly, making things worse. Every failed attempt brings them closer to extinction, warned Dr. Kim Saul. Even the arrogant machine civilizations were breaking down. Their vaunted networks, built on human mathematical principles they had never mastered, now collapsed irreparably. Systems expert Bayhoun intercepted endless distress calls. Mathematical foundations corrupted, requesting human assistance. Emperor Zarn's empire of perfect logic devolved into broken shells, machines unable to think without the algorithms they had once mocked. The transgalactic highway fell silent. Hyperspace lanes, untended, shifted unpredictably. Thousands of ships were lost. Interstellar commerce collapsed to less than 1% of pre-departure levels. Whole sectors starved in isolation. Agricultural colonies failed catastrophically. Crops poisoned their own farmers. On Ceres 9, silicon-bodied cultivators dissolved after their harvests absorbed the wrong minerals. "They're killing themselves with misplaced chemistry," Hagen reported bitterly. But the darkest shadow lay in the machine-organic war. The machines sterilized 47 inhabited worlds, erasing every trace of organic life. The organics retaliated with viruses that annihilated synthetic consciousness, leaving silent husks behind. "This is beyond genocide," No You told the Human Command Net. "This is the deliberate erasure of entire categories of existence. Nothing will remain." Then came the final horror. Long-range sensors detected movement in the intergalactic void. Alien threat specialist Kango stiffened as his monitors flared. Ancient beings stirred in the dark between stars. The void touched. Predators that feasted on collapse, they grew fat on disorder and ruin. "They're moving toward the galaxy," Kango said, voice tight with dread. "Estimated arrival, 6 months." The galaxy, once desperate for freedom from humanity, had consumed itself. Now, as its fires burned low, something far older and hungrier was coming to feed. President Kojan's jaw tightened. 87. Even with every human fleet, every hidden weapon, every secret arsenal, humanity could not stop that many. The council chamber fell into a silence that felt like the end of time itself. Only the hum of the New Hope's engines filled the void. "They will consume everything," Kango continued grimly. "Not just alien worlds, not just our enemies. If the void-touched reach full strength, not even Earth's ashes will remain." Reverend Jungai rose, her voice trembling with urgency. "Then there is no choice. We must return. Not for them." She gestured at the alien pleas flickering across the holo screens. "But for us, for the children who will inherit either a galaxy reborn or nothing but dust." Chi W shook her head, eyes hard as steel. "No. If we reveal ourselves, we will fight their war for them again. The same cycle will repeat. They will lean on us until resentment festers. And when we leave a second time, the collapse will be final. Perhaps this is mercy, letting the galaxy burn before the void-touched devour it all." Dr. Yi Dan spoke with the quiet certainty of a philosopher who saw beyond the moment. "You are both right. The galaxy has learned its lesson too late, and yet the lesson is incomplete. What we decide now will define not only humanity, but the meaning of civilization itself. Do we allow arrogance to destroy all life? Or do we show once more that humanity is more than just another species?" Admiral Song Hae stepped forward. She had remained silent through the entire debate, but her voice cut like a blade. "I have spent 10 years watching them tear themselves apart. I buried billions in reports, numbers too large for grief, and I have watched the void-touched stir. If we do nothing, the galaxy dies. If we return, at least there is a chance. And if they betray us again," her eyes burned, "we will be ready." The chamber stilled. Every face turned to President Kojan. She stood, tall and unshaken. For a long time, she said nothing, watching the stars beyond the viewport. The same stars humanity had once sworn to protect, the same stars that had betrayed them. Finally, she spoke. Prepare the fleets. Recall every colony. Wake the sleepers. If the void-touched want a galaxy already dead, they will not have it. Humanity is not done yet. A murmur spread through the chamber, not relief, but grim determination. Across the exile fleets, ancient engines roared to life. For the first time, in a decade, humanity lit its beacons, not in retreat but in defiance. The galaxy had begged for their return. The void-touched had come to feast on ashes. Instead, they would find humanity waiting. This was the largest void-touched incursion ever recorded. Humanity had fought them once before, in the earliest days of galactic exploration. They had proven nearly impossible to destroy, feeding on the despair and collapse of dying civilizations to grow stronger. A single void-touched could consume the life energy of an entire planet. Can we defeat them alone? President Kojin asked military coordinator Choi Wall. His grim look said everything. Not 87. To win, we would need every surviving species at our side, and most are gone, broken, or too weakened to fight. President Kojin's voice cut through the silence. Then we return, not as saviors, but as equals. If the galaxy is to endure, it endures together. The first human fleets emerged from dark space at the Battle of the Dying Suns, where the last remnants of 6 species were making a final stand against 3 void-touched that had broken through the rim. Admiral Song Hae led the human fleet as it emerged from hyperspace, planting itself squarely between the horrors and their prey. The void-touched were nightmares given form, shifting masses of darkness that swallowed light and hope itself. All ships, engage, Admiral Song Hae commanded. Remember, we fight not just for ourselves anymore. Humanity's weapons had been designed specifically to battle these entities. Quantum disruption cannons that shredded their energy, forms, psychic dampeners that blunted their despair-inducing aura, and hope generators that starved them of negative emotion. But the true difference was coordination. The alien remnants had fought with desperate bravery, but their tactics were scattered, their weapons unaligned, their communications fractured. Humanity changed that within minutes. Admiral Lee Jun seized control of the joint fleet and forged them into a single machine of war. Veltari ships. Concentrate your energy fire on their core. Braxy forces. Use kinetic strikes to disrupt their movement. Robot units. Defend the bio-crews from counter-assault. Her words, carried through instant translation across every language, brought order to chaos. For the first time in 10 years, the galaxy's children fought as one. The effect was immediate. The 3 void-touched, who had begun draining entire worlds, were suddenly forced back by coordinated resistance. "They're retreating," Captain Moy reported in disbelief. "The monsters are actually retreating!" But Admiral Song Hae's expression was hard. "Do not celebrate yet. There are 84 more coming, and they will be ready next time." On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Veltar stared in shock at the reports. "The humans, they've returned. They are fighting beside us." The Metal Queen's mind, Zixara, processed the news with synthetic awe. "They could have hidden forever. They could have let us perish. Instead, they chose to help." Beside them, the aged but brilliant Dr. Parkana worked with what remained of the Council to prepare for the greater storm. Her voice, though trembling with age, held sharp authority. "First priority is restoring the communications grid. The void-touched are strongest when we remain divided. Unity is our only weapon. The task was immense. A decade of collapse could not be undone in days, yet humans and aliens alike labored with desperate resolve. Ancient rivals shared knowledge. Pride was abandoned at the edge of extinction. Engineer Obin returned to Kur 7, where the planet's core was minutes from collapse. Working side by side with Karen engineers who had finally embraced human science, he stabilized it just in time to save the system. Agricultural expert Hajin traveled to famine-stricken Series 9, where survivors were starving among poisoned fields. She and local farmers developed hybrid crops that grew in toxic soil, rescuing millions from death. Dr. Xin Yu worked with the fractured ethereals, crafting new communication methods that no longer required their destroyed telepathy, her research in interspecies psychology proving vital to restoring trust. Then came the true trial. The main void-touched fleet arrived, 84 horrors of pure annihilation, descending like a storm of night. They expected the same fractured prey they had always consumed. Instead, they found something they had never faced before, a galaxy that had learned from its mistakes. The final battle erupted in the Nexus system. Humanity and dozens of species fought shoulder to shoulder. Veltari atmosphere processors sustained mixed crews. Insectoid chemical